Alright, welcome to the second attempt at covering the uh, SpaceX Starlink-1 launch. Last time, well, there were two attempts before this. The first attempt, they got right into the start of the webcast and they had a scrub. The second time, they scrubbed before the webcast even started. That was last week. This week, this is the first attempt this week, and the third attempt overall. And from what I heard last, the weather was looking really good. So we'll just wait until it starts. It should start any minute now. I'll see you then. You can just stare at this very nice screen. It's a bit strange, 10 minutes to go and Still not music. Wonder if there's an update. Now live. Let me just reload this. Maybe I'm behind or something. Okay, here we go.
It's 4.5 minutes. This provides clearance for the Falcon 9 to lift off. As for the spacecraft inside that fairing, at T-minus 15 minutes, the Starlink spacecraft finished transitioning to internal power. The vehicle remains healthy and is currently tracking no issues for tonight's launch. The weather's also looking great. No issues with ground level or upper level winds today. No clouds or lightning rules to violate. The weather is looking fantastic for tonight's launch, and the range is also go and is prepared to support today's mission. We can continue to count down to liftoff in just about 9 minutes. If for some reason we do have to call a hold on today's launch, we will have a backup opportunity for tomorrow, May 24th at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
It's weird that they mentioned that because there's actually a 2-hour launch window, so they should be able to have another opportunity today if there's a scrub, or a hold rather.
Today, most satellite internet service comes from geostationary satellites, or geosatellites. These satellites are satellites that sit at one point very high above the Earth and provide connectivity over a broad area. The main drawback of this setup is that you have a higher latency or delay in the signal provided because they're so far above the Earth.
Absolutely.
Satellites like this are also generally more expensive to produce and launch. Low Earth orbit satellites are much closer to the Earth and so have much lower latency or delay in their signal. The satellites are also smaller and less expensive to launch. Here you can see
look
an
at that.
animation that represents how the Starlink constellation operates. Again, you have a high number of satellites in constant motion covering all parts of the globe. And since they're so low to the Earth, that latency or the delay from the signal going from the ground to the satellite and back down to the ground is much lower than a geostationary satellite. We've learned a lot over the past year and have had a lot of fun testing out the capabilities of those 2 test satellites. We successfully communicated with ground stations to run 4K video and even played video games over the link. And we also partnered with the Air Force Global
The irony of it
program to
buffering
demonstrate how,
while they're
over
talking about how
600
good the
megabits
connection
per
is.
second of throughput to an aircraft in flight, which is super exciting for those of you who travel frequently. The bulk of our team working this project is based in Redmond, Washington, and watching today's exciting launch, as you can see on your screen right there. They're just as excited as we are in Hawthorne to see this rocket take off tonight. As I mentioned earlier in the webcast, this is our first launch of a production-designed satellite system as part of our effort to launch a next-generation broadband internet satellite constellation. This will be, fun fact, this will actually be the heaviest payload ever flown on a Falcon 9 rocket, weighing roughly 30,000 pounds.
Yep.
Each of those individual 60 satellites
There it
weighs
is.
about 227 kilograms or 500 pounds each. So while they're smaller than a typical communications satellite, they're still pretty sizable when you stack them all together. And that flat panel design maximizes space, allowing for a very dense launch stack, as you can see right on your screen right now, to take full advantage of that Falcon 9's launch capabilities. Starlink is also the very first Krypton-propelled spacecraft ever flown. Aside from being the native planet of Superman, Krypton also happens to be a nice blend of cost-effective and efficient propellant for ion propulsion. These ion thrusters enable the satellites to orbit raise, maneuver in space, and deorbit at the end of their useful life. The satellites also have a singular on-orbit solar array. This is one larger panel instead of 2, which minimizes potential points of failure. Solar cells are standardized and easy to integrate into the manufacturing process. The Starlink satellites are also equipped with an autonomous collision avoidance system. To our knowledge, this is the first of any satellite constellation ever. The satellites use inputs from the Department of Defense's debris tracking system to autonomously perform maneuvers to avoid collisions of space debris and other spacecraft.
In other words,
this capability reduces human error, which allows for a more reliable approach to collision avoidance.
Avoid space junk on their own.
95% of all the components on the satellites are demisable, which means that when these satellites are at the end of their life, they will be naturally slowed by the Earth's atmosphere and ultimately be vaporized into dust as they re-enter. At 95% demisable, the satellites exceed current safety standards, and future iterative designs will go even further, shifting to a full 100% demisable material design. Also, while flying at a lower altitude of 550 kilometers, we ensure that the satellites will quickly and easily demise at the end of their life cycle. Once they reach the end of their life, the satellites will utilize their onboard ion propulsion system to deorbit over the course of a few months. In the unlikely event that a propulsion system becomes inoperable, the satellites will naturally passively decay because of atmospheric drag within 1 to 5 years, which is significantly less than the 25-year industry standard for low Earth orbit, or the thousands of years required if you're at a higher altitude. We are currently just about
never at
T-minus 5
geostationary
minutes
altitude.
until liftoff. Falcon 9 is moving into the final stages of its countdown. The first and second stages are both fully loaded, nearly fully loaded, with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. The first stage should finish prop loading at about T-minus 3 minutes, and the second stage will finish just after at T-minus 2. We're approaching that T0 mark quickly, so we'll listen into the countdown momentarily. At T-minus 60 seconds, be sure to listen in for the call-out that the Falcon 9 is in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. The Starlink payloads in that fairing continue to be healthy, and the F9 team is currently tracking no issues aboard the rocket. Weather looks great for tonight's launch out of the Cape, and the range is green for launch. So with no issues, let's listen in to the countdown net for the final 4 minutes.
Okay, so the Falcon 9 rocket, the first stage, which is from here down to the engines, has flown 3 times. Well, this will be the 3rd time it's flown. It's flown twice so far. I forget which exact missions it's flown on, but I do know that it's booster number 1049.3. The 3rd flight of booster B1049. It was a West Coast booster before this one, I believe. Launching out of Vandenberg and landing on the drone ship. I believe the first one was launched was the last Iridium mission, but don't quote me on that.
Stage 1 box load is complete.
Alright, so why is this launch happening? Well, they've already said it why, but in case you didn't get it the first time, SpaceX is going to be funding, well, this is sort of the other goal. Well, no, it's the main goal. It's the main goal of this system. They're going to be funding Mars. They need money for Mars, basically. And Starlink is their method of funding Mars. One of their methods, anyway. Basically, what Starlink is a very, very large satellite constellation operating in low Earth orbit that provides cheap, fast, reliable, and high-speed internet with low latency to pretty much the entire planet. Yeah. I don't know if you caught it or not, but they said it was fast enough to play video games on. I know in the past they played CS:GO on the demonstration satellites, on the prototypes they launched last year. I remember reading that somewhere. If you can play CS:GO, you can play any game. Now, it should be noted that this is not going to be as low as wired connection. Well, probably not anyway.
And Falcon 9 can start up.
Or even Wi-Fi. But it should be more than enough to play almost any game.
Stage 2, press
And if it can play any game, it's perfectly fine for every other for every other use, pretty much. I can't think of a single other use of internet that's more demanding than gaming.
T-minus 30 seconds.
At least in terms of latency. So 20 seconds left.
Stage 1's at startup pressure.
15 now. Let's listen to launch.
Seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
Go ahead and mute my
10,
mic.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Go Falcon. Go Starlink. Go USS.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Visual propulsion nominal. Pad operation securing, step section 59 on LVNet.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Alright, so the first Falcon 9, or the 71st Falcon 9, not the first Falcon 9. The 71st Falcon 9 launch.
Falcon 9 as it
Great.
descends through the
Falcon
atmosphere
9 is
carrying the
supersonic.
SpaceX Starlink payload of satellites.
We're approaching max
Coming
Q
up
very
in just
shortly.
a few seconds
There we
here,
go.
the vehicle is going to be passing through max Q. That is the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Let's listen for that call out.
Basically what that means is that
Vehicle
It's
is
me-
experiencing maximum aerodynamic pressure.
that means that it's going to be the max load, mass stress on the fuselage at any point in the flight, except maybe during landing.
The vehicle has passed through max Q.
Except definitely during landing,
which
but
means that the atmosphere is only going to get thinner from here on out.
max
Coming up
stress
shortly
in
at
flight,
T plus 2
or
minutes and 35
at launch.
seconds is going to be, or excuse me, T plus 2 minutes and 32 seconds. is
Oh,
going to
look
be
at that
MECO.
plume.
That stands for main engine cutoff. That's when those
That's really
9
nice.
Merlin engines you can see burning on your screen right now will
I
shut
wish it
off
weren't so
or cut
shaky.
off. Shortly, only a few seconds after that, will be stage separation at 2 minutes and 35 seconds, quickly followed by SES1. That stands
There we
for
go.
second engine start 1. That's when that single Merlin vacuum engine will ignite after stage separation. All telemetry looks nominal from that first stage right now, and trajectories look good.
Don't you buffer, YouTube. Don't you dare buffer.
You can see the
Recovery
exhaust
AOS.
gases of those 9 Merlin engines expanding as it gets further and further up into the atmosphere. Stand by for MECO in about 5 seconds.
MECO is the cutoff of all 9 first stage engines. And followed shortly thereafter by stage separation.
Confirmed.
And they would have it. And there we have it, successful ignition of the second stage. You can see Florida in the background on the booster camera.
You can see it on your
You
screen.
can see Orlando
Hear
right in
through
the center of the
cheers
screen.
crowd here at SpaceX headquarters. That we just had a good MECO, we had a good stage separation, and we had a good second engine start. That second stage is now burning
Is that
brightly
Orlando?
on the
Oh,
right-hand
stop,
side of your screen,
YouTube.
accelerating
I think that's
the
Orlando.
Starlink stack towards its deployment altitude. On the left-hand side of your screen, you can see the view, a view of the Earth, actually, a beautiful view of the curvature of the Earth and all the lights of the eastern seaboard of the United States. That camera on the left-hand
Actually,
side
you know
is
what?
attached to
The
top
cape is
towards
right
the inner
there.
Stage of the first stage.
Oh, wait, no,
On the
they're
right,
launching-
you can see the fairing deploy from that Starlink satellite stack.
They're launching at a 51-degree angle
The
north,
crowd
so
here
that is Orlando.
cheering. I'm sure everyone up in Redmond is happy too.
The Starlink satellites are great. They look great, don't they? I cannot wait for the deployment. That's going to look amazing.
So at
Hopefully
this
they
point
show
in
it.
the mission, there are 2 things happening simultaneously. On the right-hand side of your
Acquisition
screen, you
signal,
can see
Bermuda.
that's the SpaceX Starlink stack right there, now exposed to the vacuum of space that we've jettisoned that payload fairing from the top of the rocket.
I want to know what that pulsating thing is at the
Right
bottom
now
there.
you can see a view of the bottom of the second stage. That is the Merlin vacuum engine, currently burning brightly, doing its first of 2 burns to raise those satellites up to their deployment altitude of 440 kilometers above the Earth. The next step for this second stage is going to be SECO-1. That's going to happen at
Maybe
8
with Starlink,
minutes
they
and
can afford
47
a
seconds.
camera
But
that's
while
more than
happening,
480p
we'll be
on
watching
their
the
second
first stage
stage.
also coming back down towards the surface of the Earth.
Alright, so
This will be the 3rd time that we have attempted to recover this first stage, this particular first stage. Those of you who have seen previous landing attempts may notice that we are not doing a boost back burn today.
well, I was just going to mention this, so there we go.
To cancel out the horizontal velocity of a first stage as it goes away from the launch pad, and then bring it back towards the Cape. For tonight, we're doing a drone ship landing on Of Course I Still Love You, so we just position the drone ship out in the Atlantic Ocean
Second
to catch
stage
it
is
at
following
the
a
end of its
nominal
parabola.
trajectory.
No need for a boost back burn here.
To elaborate on that,
Without a
This
boost
is-
back burn, the next step coming up for the first stage will be the entry burn at T plus 6 minutes and 23 seconds.
to elaborate on that, this
The entry burn will last for
Acquisition at New
approximately
Hampshire.
20
Come
seconds
on.
and then shut down. And then after that, we'll be heading towards a landing burn.
To elaborate on that, this launch is extremely heavy. This payload for this launch is extremely heavy, so it has to follow a more GTO
All
style
telemetry looks good from that second stage
landing profile
as it continues to pick up speed towards that intended deployment altitude.
with a landing position around 600 kilometers downrange.
So as I said earlier, the first stage is now about to start its entry burn at 6 minutes and 23 seconds. This entry burn is to slow that first stage down just a
Oh, here we
little
go.
bit before it hits the thicker regions of the atmosphere. You can see the camera on the first stage on the left-hand side of your screen right now. It's dark,
Stage
but
1
in a few
ATSS
minutes, those
safe.
Merlin engines at the
There
bottom
we
of
go.
that first stage will light up, and there they go.
Stage 1 entry burn has started.
That is the start of the entry burn.
And stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And that's it. That is the end of the entry burn. The next step for that first stage is going to be the landing burn.
Oh, look at those grid fins getting toasty.
You can see some aerodynamic flows past those grid fins right now on the first stage.
I'm
as
going
it
to
gets
lose
into the thicker and thicker
contact
regions
with
of the
the
atmosphere.
booster momentarily due to the curvature of the Earth.
Those grid fins help to
Second
stabilize the
stage
first
continues
stage
to
as it heads
follow
back
a
down
nominal
towards the deck
trajectory.
of Course I Still Love You.
Stage 1 is transonic.
Also signal stage 1, Cape Canaveral as expected.
All telemetry is nominal on the second stage as it continues to accelerate.
Apparently, you can
Next
see this in
big,
North Carolina.
thing happening here is going to be the landing burn at T plus 8 minutes and 9 seconds, just about 30 seconds from now.
More like about 15 seconds from now, or 20 seconds-ish. Now it's 10 seconds away.
For those of you
20
just joining
seconds.
us, we
sorry.
did have a successful liftoff at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time from Cape Canaveral. The first stage was able to successfully
Now about 10
separate
seconds.
and is now heading back for its 3rd landing attempt in its history.
Stage 1 landing burn has started.
The landing burn has started as scheduled. We don't currently have video from that first stage, but stand by. We may
Vehicles
be
at
able
terminal
to get
guidance.
something from the drone ship.
It sounds like not
Landing
even
burn started at 8
even
minutes
getting
and 9 seconds, and the landing is scheduled
Landing legs are
for 8
deployed.
minutes and 30 seconds, just about now.
landing legs have deployed. Listen for the call out.
You can
Stage
tell that here at
2
SpaceX
FTS
headquarters
is
we
safe.
haven't yet gotten any video from the drone ship, but we're just waiting for confirmation.
And this is recovery. Falcon 9 has landed. Landing operations.
There we go.
Procedure 11.100 on recovery 1 and ECF 9.
While we're waiting for that, we are expecting SECO to happen shortly. That is second engine cutoff.
I'm surprised that no one freaked out at that.
It sounds like we may have confirmation that the first stage has landed.
There we go.
That is a shot from Of Course I Still Love You. of
Oh,
the
that
first
landed
Falcon
exactly
rocket
dead
for his
center.
third landing.
Nominal Falcon orbit insertion.
Well done, Falcon 9.
Always great to see those first stages come back.
Putting a nail in your own coffin.
While that was happening, we did have our second engine cutoff 1. That's the end of the second stage's first
Acquisition
burn.
signal in the Finland.
And we did have confirmation of a good orbit for that second stage.
Are they
Right
going to
now,
show
we're about to
everything
enter
else?
a coast phase, so we are going to take a quick break, but we're going to leave you with an animation that shows where we are in the coast phase.
All right.
We will be back at about T plus 45 minutes into the mission for a second stage relight, followed by another short coast phase, and then payload deploy. Hopefully we'll be able to bring that deployment to you live on the webcast, so we will see you back here in about 35 minutes. Don't touch that dial.
All right, I might do the same thing and just leave you with the animation. I'll be back at 45 minutes, or at 55 minutes, I guess, or whenever I see something interesting. Oh, and you better believe I'm going through the entire launch. I want to see that deploy.
Also signal Bermuda as expected. Also signal Newfoundland as expected. Acquisition of signal, Gun Hilly.
For those who are interested, the restart will be happening over around Madagascar. So, well, maybe a bit north of that. But when you see it coming up over Madagascar, that's when you should expect to see the launch or the restart of the engine. Alright, we're coming up shortly on the second burn, or the second stage, to circularize the orbit. Shortly thereafter will be the deployment of the satellites. It looks like they have ground station coverage. Not exactly stable coverage of the ground station. Oh, look at that. Oh. Well. Anywho. I'll be back right about the time of the burn. Shortly after the burn, I should say, is the deployment. I don't know exactly when that will be. It'll show up in the timeline. I believe it sets T plus 1 minute 76, or 1 hour with 17 minutes. That's probably wrong, but I think that's about what it is. Okay, I'll be back in a few minutes. Alright. Early in less than 3 minutes away, I'm saying. Getting close to the time when they're going to refire the engine. What they're going to be doing when they refire the engine, I haven't actually looked at the trajectories or anything, but I assume what they're doing is circularizing the orbit at 400 kilometers.
Welcome back to the webcast for the Starlink mission. For those of you just joining us, we did have an on-time liftoff at Canaveral Air Force Station at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. After that, the first stage was able to take the second stage up into the atmosphere and then return for a third time on the deck of course, I Still Love You. All the while, the second stage was able to complete its first burn, and it is now just about to start its second burn. We have two events coming up here, one at T plus 45 minutes and 56 seconds. That'll be SES-2, or Second Engine Start 2. This is the second of two burns
if you look closely, you can see it
will be performing before deploying the payloads at the
reorienting
intended
itself
altitude
with the
of 440 kilometers above the Earth. So with just about 10
on the
seconds until
stage.
SES-2, let's watch. This will be a short one, only about 3 seconds of burn.
Coming up any second. And we have ignition.
Shut down.
The Merlin vacuum engine is a very powerful engine.
There it is. That was short and sweet, but that was the second stage.
So it doesn't take a lot of
Seco 2
burn
just
time to
commenced. That's the
circularize the
second
orbit
engine
from
cutoff too.
100
Just waiting right now for
kilometers
confirmation that the
to,
second stage
well, like
is in a
200
good
kilometers
orbit.
to 400 kilometers.
And we do have confirmation that the second stage is in a good orbit. So that completes the 2 of 2 burns for
Good
that second
orbit
stage.
insertion
We
for
are
payload
going to go to one more brief coast phase, only about 15 minutes. At about T plus 1 hour and 1 minute, we'll come back to guide you through payload deploy, just 15 minutes from now.
That's going to be so cool. The coolest thing, the coolest payload deployment I think ever. It's going to be nuts. I'll be back in about 15 minutes. 10. It's all 10.
Launch control, ground stations on over there.
At State Garcia as expected.
Alright. Here's where you see the first of many, many extremely cool satellite deployments. I mean, if all goes well in this one, they'll be doing like 3 or 4 more than this year. Looks like they've been doing deployment probably where the orbits intersect here. So over just off the coast of Tasmania? Well, not just. It's like 200 or 300 kilometers up the coast of Tasmania, but yeah, about 3 more minutes actually. Alright, so maybe we should go over one more time. Oh, kind of move around there a little bit. Maybe we should go over one more time.
Signal Tasmania.
It just got contact with the ground station over here in Tasmania. That means there's a station there with a big satellite dish that's now talking back and forth with the second station payload, so they can send and receive telemetry from it. It doesn't mean, however, that the stage is just dead up there when it's in between ground stations. No, it's programmed to do things like maneuvers and orientations, even when it doesn't have ground stations warp. It's just that the ground stations mean that they can get the data back from the second stage, and they can send like signals up to it to not do something. Although they wouldn't really have much control over what it wouldn't be able to do, actually. So it's mainly just to get data back. All you can see it's well, I can't tell if that's actually orientating or if it's just the clouds moving along underneath it. No, I think it's rotating. That looks a bit too fast. No, it's not rotating. I thought it was. It's not very fast. You can tell because of the debris here. The debris is, since there's no air in space or anything to move against, at least not much air at that altitude, there's nothing to push against. And there's nothing to drag on anything, so that's a completely separate thing from the other one. It's in orbit at the exact same velocity, so... Oh, now it's rotating, I think. Yeah, now it's rotating.
Welcome back to the webcast for the Starlink mission. Just for those of us joining us, we did have an on-time liftoff at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time from Cape Canaveral. That first stage was able to accelerate the second stage into orbit and then touch back down on the deck of Course I Still Love You. And then the second stage was able to complete its 2 scheduled burns. The second stage is now currently at the target deployment altitude of 440 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. As you can see on your screen right here,
I see what they're going to do now. This is going to be interesting.
The stack of those Starlink satellites as they prepare for deployment.
Now it's spinning.
Deployment is scheduled for
It's
T
a flat
plus
spin.
2 minutes and 10 seconds. Let's stand by and watch.
So if what they're doing is accurate. No, don't lose signal. So if they're gonna do what I think they're gonna do, then
This brief loss of signal was expected. We should be able to get that video back very shortly. Stand by.
so if they're gonna do what I think they're gonna do, they're gonna pop them off
Starlink
one at a time.
constellation deploy confirmed.
We missed it. Come on.
And we have confirmation of deploy.
That's a bit anticlimactic, but oh, they're
You
bumping
can
into
hear
each
the
other a
team
little
in the
bit.
background. This is an incredible moment for SpaceX. You can
Look at
see
that.
those flat-packed Starlink satellites slowly gliding away from the top of the second stage. This is the highest number of satellites, highest number of satellites that SpaceX has ever deployed in a single time.
Look at them all go.
There are no deployment mechanisms between those spacecraft, so they really are just slowly fanning out like a deck of cards into space.
Wow. Is that a solar panel deploying already? No, it's not. It's just one turned edge on. Well, get
You
ready
can see
for
those spacecraft
a
starting to
whole lot
separate
more of
as
these.
they naturally glide away from each other. The sun is glinting pretty strongly off the panels and the bodies of those spacecraft, so it's tough to see them individually, but you can kind of see one breaking away from the pack right now. Those spacecraft will slowly disperse over time.
That's amazing. That's the kind of stuff you do in an Incredible Space Program. Not gonna lie, if you're just lazy and don't want to get up to the time of just
With that
seeing them all
successful
individually
deployment,
pop
we're going to be
off.
bringing the webcast to a close. For those of you who just caught the end here, we did have successful liftoff,
No
successful
kidding.
first and second stage and activities, and then finally a beautiful deploy, as you can still see ongoing on your screen right now at 440 kilometers above the Earth. It's been a very exciting launch day today here at SpaceX, but we really are just getting started. Please thank you to the 45th Space Wing for range safety and to the FAA for licensing today's launch, as well as the FCC for our first operational Starlink satellite licenses. We'd also like to thank all of our viewers for tuning in. Please follow our website and social media platforms for updates on our next missions and milestones. It's been an honor to host tonight's webcast. Have a good night.
wow. That's the start of the future. Well, actually, the start of the future was December 21st, 2015, but this is the next chapter in the future. I'll see you tomorrow.